I don't know if you know her. I hope you know her, but I would say that you are an influencer. So
I don't like that word, but yeah.
We are used to fashion influencers or nutrition influencers, but you are a healthcare innovation influencer. So how is it?
Well, I just like sharing how different healthcare systems around the world adopt technology with the hope to enable others to learn from each other, and that's exactly why we are also here today.
So I hope you all follow your podcast and all your network also. So happy that you're here and very nice to have you here all. Thank you.
Thank you. The title of this panel is Best Practices from Pioneers in Health Transformation, but I must say that what we've heard so far was very inspiring in terms of collaboration and the boldness in the way that Barcelona and the whole region decided to go after data and innovation, and it's super inspiring to be here today. To make the discussion that we're about to have a little bit easier, we're going to start with a short presentation by each of the speakers who are going to outline the key information about the countries that they are coming from. So let's start with Elina.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation for being here. So I will be talking about Finland and some of the cornerstones of the secondary use of health data. But then I will be also touching about the European level developments and talk about Tehdas2 joint action. But yes, I come from a small country, from Finland. We have a population of 5.6 million people. And in the photo, you can see that was taken last weekend from Jyväskylä, 3 hours from Helsinki. And I was skiing there with my family. But when I was taking the photo, it was minus 23 degrees. So it was pretty cold, but it was also beautiful. But enough of the weather. So in Finland, we have 21 welfare regions, plus 2. So the plus 2 means that we have also Helsinki city and then the island of Åland. So altogether 23. And we have 300 municipalities, but the healthcare is now organized by these welfare regions. And why Finland has been the sort of a pioneer and the front runner in the secondary use of health data is that we have had these fully digitalized health records already for several decades. We have very strong digital infrastructure we have been building not only in healthcare but also in other areas of society. So from the 90s we have had the digital health records basically nationwide. We have also very rich data registries and with very long time series, so very longitudinal data that has almost 100% coverage of the population. And we have personal identity code, which is of course key for linking this data. And we also have high societal trust and for that, one of the factors has been that, of course, the transparency, and we are the small country, and the culture also affects, but we have had in the secondary use of health data also a strong legal basis for that. So since 2019, we had the National Act on the secondary use of health and social data in place, and with that, we also established FinData, the National Health Data Permit Authority that handles the permits for accessing the data. And for these developments, this is of course one reason, but for these developments, this has also led to the inspiration and development at the European level. So I think most of you have already heard about the European Health Data Space Regulation, and Finland and SITRA is coordinating this Tehdas2 joint action towards European health data space. We are 29 countries involved and almost 70 organizations, and we are really preparing the ground for the implementation of the regulation. So what we are doing in practice are concrete guidelines and technical specifications for health data access bodies, for health data users, and for health data holders. And the key elements that we are working on are these common elements at the European level. So we are working on the findability of data, so metadata standards, harmonizing the data access procedures and formats and forms. We are laying the ground for the common IT infrastructure and the specifications for the secure processing environment. We are also addressing citizens' rights, transparency and collaboration aspects in this whole ecosystem. And what is important in Tehdas 2 is that this is a joint effort. So we are putting all our technical specifications and guidelines under public consultation because we want to hear from you, from all the different stakeholders. So all our documents are undergoing this public consultation, and you can find these from our website, tehdas.eu. We still have the third and the final public consultation coming up in May. Mm-hmm. And we really believe that this is a common journey, and we want to make this as feasible as possible, and that's why the stakeholder involvement is crucial. And as you know, the application of the regulation starts already in March 2029 for the secondary use and the first category, so we really need to start moving fast to get there.
Perhaps just worth mentioning that for FinData, even people from outside of Finland can apply for a permit and secondary use.
Yes, absolutely.
Mark, let's continue with the UK, with the NHS, not a part of the EU, so you're not thinking about EHDS. What are you thinking about?
I wish personally I was part of the EU. Good afternoon, Barcelona, and thank you, BioData and the British Embassy for inviting me today. Of course, when one talks about the United Kingdom, there are 4 countries in the United Kingdom: England, Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales. I'll just talk about the English NHS. The UK has a population of nearly 70 million now, of which about 60 million or so live in England. As you know, one of our national hobbies is to reorganise our health service, and we are reorganising again. Currently, we have the Department of Health and Social Care that's responsible to ministers, to politicians, for policy formulation. And then we have a centralised administration called NHS England that leads on strategy and the operational delivery of health service objectives. Currently, this is being abolished on the grounds that it causes too much confusion between policy formulation, strategy, and execution and delivery. Underneath NHS England, and of course you'll appreciate, unlike Spain, the United Kingdom, or at least England, is a very centralised country. Politically, that's how we've been for centuries. The devolution of power with responsibility and accountability flows from NHS England to 7 regions. So you can do the maths on the regional size, about 8 to 9 million people, so a decent size. And then underneath the regions, we have integrated care boards. We have 26 integrated care boards who are responsible for integrating health, primary care, secondary care, tertiary care, mental health, social care, aged care, public sector, private sector. And these 26 integrated care boards place contracts in a purchaser-provider relationship where the government primarily purchases services from providers, from hospitals or primary care clinics. And these can be public or private. The vast majority are public, although it's interesting to note now that about 14% to 15% of all work now is contracted to the independent private sector. And this trend has been taking place since Tony Blair, who became Prime Minister of the United Kingdom in 1997. What I've done on this page here, and it can be translated into Spanish. I'm sure the British Embassy would be pleased to do so. Thank you very much indeed, looking at you now. Essentially, I'm summarising, by the way, being English, we love plans. We love plans. it's much easier to write a plan than it is to implement it. Now, I should say I've worked in 81 countries. I was the former global chairman of healthcare for KPMG. I've been to Spain and this magnificent city, Barcelona, on many occasions. And guess what? You like your plans as well, don't you? Yeah. We could play a game about whose plans were better.
Mark, we're going to come back to that.
One more minute, please. One more second, thank you. Now, the issue here, thank you very much, you're very kind, Slovenia. Now, this plan here essentially says all that BioCat is doing. So my last word before I hand over is I really congratulate what BioCat is doing. There are about 10 big innovation clusters around the world, from Japan to Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Boston. I really think something special is going on in Barcelona, and I congratulate you. Well done.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, so not easy to follow after Elina, I must say, but I'll make a try. So this is me, Michel Silvestri, Swedish eHealth agency. And this government agency is the national authority for digital infrastructure for healthcare and social care, for health data, in other words. Just some facts about Sweden, a population of 10 million, comparable to Catalonia, I would say. We have 3 levels of public administration. The state government, of course, with its government agencies. Then we have, similar in a way to Finland, I would say 21 regions, each of them with their respective county council. And in addition to that, we have the 290 municipalities. And the regions and the municipalities, they are very autonomous, maybe for better, for worse. For instance, when it comes to procuring electronic health record systems or things like that. Since I'm a humble Swede, following after these fellows, I start with the challenges, more or less. But of course, Sweden is very similar, I would say, to Finland and the other Nordic countries. And we were pioneers when it comes to digitalization. And it's been good in many ways, but now, some 50 years afterwards, we have a legacy of different kinds to handle. To say something positive, we also have these good registries, quality registries, more than 100 of them for different medical diagnoses. And these are really, I would say, not the digital oil of today, rather maybe the digital gold of today. But also these are distributed on different technical platforms, again with challenges coming from that. And of course also with the infrastructure there are challenges. So I would say we live now in a very fragmented digital ecosystem. It's fragmented when it comes to administration, organization, responsibilities, maybe with unclarities regarding who's responsible for what in this infrastructure, for instance. The autonomy from the regions, for instance, that I mentioned, again, for better, for worse. Data storage, distributed, fragmented, also with data of poor or at least very different levels of quality. And again, of course, challenges when it comes to digital infrastructure that we need to handle. And the major problem, I would say, is the lack of interoperability, also within our country. So it's difficult to share health data, and also that the data means the same thing from the one who sends it to the one who receives it. So that can be vital, of course, in some cases, that is correct. So with this, coming back to what Elina introduced, the European health data space, this EU regulation that entered into force almost 1 year ago, and we now will implement step by step during the next 10, 15, maybe 20 years from now, together also with Catalonia, Spain, and all the other member states, of course. And Sweden, I would say the Swedish government and its agencies We look at EHDS as a catalyst. It's a momentum for improving things according to that list of challenges that you see there. So it's a catalyst for a national digital infrastructure, a truly national digital infrastructure for healthcare and social care. So that is something that my agency is working on from several government assignments, presenting and starting to preparing for a national roadmap for this infrastructure. And I think with that, I leave over to Morten.
Now we're going to Denmark.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. I only have one slide, and there's nearly no content, so I've written down some notes here to keep the time. I'll briefly introduce you to the universe of the Danish eHealth portal and what we have done for the citizens and for the healthcare professionals for the last 2 decades. And especially, I will focus on what we will have to do due to the ongoing healthcare reform in Denmark. In Sundhed, we actually integrate 170 different data sources from all over the healthcare sector. So we integrate, we look up, and we display all those data from the healthcare sector. And data is collected in local, in regional, and in national databases, and also in all our electronic health record systems in the healthcare sector. And they are not stored at Sundhed. They are stored out there. So we only integrate, we display, and we reuse the data that is brought from everyday work in the healthcare sector. So with that tool, healthcare professionals are provided with the possibility to access patients' health data from other systems and across sectors and across boundaries in the Danish healthcare. So in this way, Sundhed is also a sort of national electronic health record covering all citizens, all healthcare professionals in every healthcare organization in Denmark, also the private ones. On the right side of my poor slide, you have a glimpse at our web portal, Sundhed.dk, and our app called MyHealth. And our solution is, as mentioned, for healthcare professionals and for citizens. And at the web portal, you can access a lot of highly qualified health information, and also, for instance, the medical handbook written by health professionals. And you can also access the Danish health record, which gives you access to electronic health record notes, medicine overview, vaccination, lab responses, and your appointment with the healthcare sector, just to mention some. And in 2024, 96% of the Danish population knew Sundhed when we made a research about that, and MyHealth. And we have 55 million visits across the 2 platforms during that year. And that's a lot in a country with only 6 million people. So we're also a small country like Finland, and smaller than Sweden. Last year, and that will be my end here. Last year, Danish government announced a political agreement on a healthcare reform, which is a response to the emerging challenges related to growing elderly population, increase in patients with chronic diseases, and the lack of healthcare professionals. And the reform is an effort to move focus and resources from the specialized hospitals towards primary, digital, and home-based care. And I think that a digital front door is written in the healthcare reform as a cornerstone of the reform, and also a cornerstone in the future Danish e-health landscape. And I think today Sundhed plays a very important role in that transformation and can be already seen as a first generation digital front door, as it provides this digital entry to the healthcare system. However, there are AI-based opportunities yet to be explored, yet to be further developed, to strengthen our position in the future and to support the ambitions of the healthcare reform. I could mention digital assistance as one thing, just an example. So actually we have come a long way, also when you look globally, but now we must step up, we must analyze, and we must rethink. And actually, I'm not sure whether a web portal will be a digital front door in the years to come.
Morten, Denmark is definitely a front runner when it comes to the patient portal. It's been there since 2002, 24 years, so many countries can look up to you. Do you also have that data available for secondary use, given that you mentioned that you're connecting the data but not storing it?
Yeah, right. As part of this uniform, we're actually also organizing in a new way. So the organization of Sundhed, the organization of Medcom, which is also very known also here in Catalonia, and the organization of the National Board of Health Data is going together. Yeah. We are 150 employees. So we will be more than 400 together. And those in the Board of National Health Data have a lot of secondary data. So today we have a few secondary data which we use, but in the future we will have much more. And also the tools of AI will help us bring them together so that we can have something like patients like me for all patients in Denmark. So you can compare people on your own age, people with the same diagnosis, what are the habits of them, how do they cope with their illness and so on. So I look very much forward in that way to the future we are going into.
What is common, even in the countries that have a long history of healthcare digitalization, is that at some point you realize that the fragmentation somehow needs to be centralized. Even the NHS, the 26 integrated care boards, were invented after gathering 200 care commissioning groups, which took care for the procurement for over 200 trusts in the UK. Michael, I have a question for you. You had kind of the most sad presentation in a sense that it seems hard to overcome the fragmentation in Sweden. And you said that you see eHDS as the driver of change. Why is that? Why will it be easier with eHDS? It's not like you haven't tried to defragment the system before.
I'm not sure now, when you present it like that, it sounds like I'm a pessimist. At the same time, you know what a pessimist is, the definition. It's a well-informed realist. So maybe that's not too bad anyway. But to try to answer your question, yes, I see lots of challenges, and maybe it's my personality or background professionally in a way. But I also see possibilities, of course. But in this case, we have problems, to be honest. And of course, this is not unique for Sweden with the lack of interoperability, if we look at it that way. But now, again, when we see eHDS as a potential driver for doing something, because we need to create interoperability of health data across borders within the European Union. And of course, then we have to start doing that within our own borders, in Sweden to start with. So in that sense, it's a momentum that I mentioned. And I think that maybe we have had a couple of bad examples quite recently with electronic health record systems procured of different regions in Sweden. And it has not been very successful this far, maybe. In that case, I could say that the systems in those examples come originally from the US and maybe were constructed in a way to more satisfy the needs when it comes to reimbursement systems, and not really, now I'm almost a bit cynical, but not really to satisfy the needs when it comes to a holistic quality health data and healthcare objective, so to say. So, of course, we need to look at that also when it comes to different EHR systems, electronic health record systems, that they function in the way that we expect from them. And the EHDS will state clear requirements when it comes to interoperability. Also some security requirements in addition to that regarding logging, etc. But at the same time, it doesn't matter which product you have, which EHR system actually. The only thing is that it must be interoperable and comply to this coming EHDS regulation. I'll stop there.
Mm-hmm. Elina, before Mark mentioned that, strategies are nice, but in a way, too often they become reports that end up in a drawer somewhere and the implementation doesn't happen. So with TEGDAS, the TEGDAS one set out how we can start with EHDS on the European level. TEGDAS 2 ends this year. So what do you expect in terms of the implementation, given that different countries in Europe are facing different challenges, are at different stages of digitalization? What should we be thinking in terms of the realism of the implementation?
Very good question. And if Michael is a little bit pessimist, then I think I would be an optimist, at least time optimist. But of course, when it comes to EHDS, we have to be realistic as well. So indeed, very different levels of maturity are in different countries, and we see that as part of the normal development process. But as also Michael was saying, the EHDS is really like a catalyst to really put things in motion, push things forward, make it happen in sort of real life. Because even though it is regulation, I don't think that after 10 years' time we will be talking so much about the new regulation anymore. It will be part of everyday practice. It will be common sense. It's just the way we see how things evolve and regulations become part of everyday life. But of course, it will take a lot of investment in the beginning. It will also take a lot of incentives in the beginning. And I think we are not seeing so many incentives yet. And it's more pushed only from the regulation side. But to really make this happen, I think we have to think about that this is an enabling regulation. Everybody wins when we make it happen. So it's an investment also for the future, and investment for the future of the healthcare and for the patients as better health outcomes.
Where will the money come from? You wanted to say something?
Yes, just a brief comment to what Elina and I have said about the EHDS regulation. The EHDS regulation is not an island by itself, but also it has to live in a kind of landscape of different EU regulations, also national regulation, of course. But regarding the fantastic BioCat report that was presented and is released today, I thought also that we could mention a new proposed EU regulation, if there were not enough of them, but this is the Biotech Act, so-called Biotech Act. And I discussed that a little bit already yesterday with Montse Daban, who was member of an earlier panel today. And this Biotech Act is especially for secondary use of health data, for research, innovation, training AI models, etc. So if I got it correctly, for instance, it's supposed to facilitate the establishing of regulatory sandboxes and also as a driver for data quality to facilitate secondary use better than we see today. And in that case, to integrate or actually maybe contribute to the implementation of EHDS regulation as well.
Mark, you worked across different healthcare systems globally for years. Where do you see, or where did you already observe the impact that data can have in healthcare when we talk about the systemic level, not just individual startup innovations?
I'll try to be brief. Let me tell you a story. Last year in Shanghai in China, there is a Chinese healthcare company called Ping and Good Doctor. They started out in the financial service sector, and they morphed into healthcare and morphed into healthcare provision and healthcare insurance. They're building AI machines, the like of which I've not seen anywhere else, including the United States of America. Now remember, this was last year. They're building now consultation, AI-led consultation capability that systematically and simultaneously will consult with over 325,000 patients per day. Never sleeps, never goes to the toilet, doesn't make mistakes, doesn't always understand you. Now, the issue is, imagine the size of the large language model every day. Ping An Good Doctor has 45 million members, I think, from memory. Imagine the power of this model and the data it's drawing into and out of. Now, we already know that China, and this is a global issue for all of us in the United Kingdom and Europe and North America, the number of clinical trials now, if you look at the pace in China, is simply breathtaking. Now, therefore, we need cooperation, of course, in Europe. You might look at the United Kingdom biobank that's just been announced. There are some benefits with size and scale. But I could go on, so just one more briefly, which is, I think, more practical for those of you that work, as I used to, in hospitals. So you know the difference between a smart hospital and an intelligent hospital. So smart hospitals get to level 7 in HIMSS. What they're doing now in South Korea, so smart hospitals are guided by the Internet of Things. They are cognizant and they talk, machines talk to each other and their data is used. The intelligent hospital is now bedding in artificial intelligence. So if you look at, say, the Samsung Medical Corporation, one of the largest healthcare systems in South Korea, I was there in autumn last year, watching how now clinical practice is not only being supported by artificial intelligence, but dare I say it, guided, directed, and led by artificial intelligence. And these are things that we used to think only 3 years ago were somewhere in the future, but they're here now. And so I think the real issue is, and it's, I understand the issues about regulation becoming normal, but we need some experimentation, we need some innovation, and that's why I think big areas like BioCat, or Oxford and Cambridge and London and Manchester, or Boston and Hong Kong and Shenzhen, or Melbourne and Toronto, we need centres of excellence so that we can really experiment and innovate at scale. And I think really that's what people like BioCat and others around the world are trying to do. But in the same way, geopolitically, we're in a race now between, it seems, America and China, with Europe playing in the middle. Make no mistake about it, healthcare is a big business. Bioscience is a big business. And AI, if you haven't got a leading edge in AI, which it assumes data integrity, trust in data, and data supremacy, you will find as an innovation center, I'm looking now at my Spanish colleagues, if you haven't got a big AI arm, you're going to be increasingly irrelevant. And so when you look at the clusters you need strong civic government. Yes, you have that in Catalonia. You need strong universities. Yes, you have that in Catalonia. You need strong health services. Yes, you have that in Catalonia. You need strong governance in terms of trust and legality. Yes, you have that in Catalonia. How big is your AI capability? Because that will soon morph into these worlds of healthcare, life sciences, biomedicine. If they were ever separate, they will not be in the next 5 years.
You failed being brief, but really brilliant insight. I actually have a follow-up.
Sorry, did I speak?
No, I have a follow-up. So what can we as Europeans learn from China, given the different attitude that we have towards data privacy?
I think in any, I mean, lots of healthcare systems, certainly in Europe, are publicly funded healthcare systems. That provides great benefits for social solidarity, for free at the point of delivery, for universality, for equity. These are all values that make us proud to be British or Spanish, Finnish, Norwegian or Danish. But the more you talk about regulation, potentially, the less you talk about innovation. Because it's not a zero-sum game. It's not that you're having a free hit on regulation and then you have another free hit on innovation. And so my feeling is, after 37 years in healthcare, 81 countries, as I said, sometimes you have to guard against over-regulation, and you can never guard against over-innovation. And therefore, really, I think BioCat is important. It's sponsored, of course, by the Catalonian government. It may be controlled in large part by it, but you have to create these sandboxes or innovatory forces. And of course, everyone knows that Chinese regulation is not the same as European Union. I'm not saying we should adopt those. You just have to find the right balance.
Morten, you wanted to respond to something.
Yeah, it was the first question you gave Mark in this round. What has it meant to the societies that we have had all this healthcare data? And I will give it another angle. I'll also go back to what about AI? Because giving back the data, it's our role as a public e-health portal to give people back the evidence-based knowledge about themselves from electronic health records. Also having this medical handbook, evidence-based knowledge. And it's part of democracy. It's part of being in a democracy that you have your own data. So I think it's so important to have that angle also. And also, when you have your data, you have a more equal relation to the healthcare professionals. Now you're equal. Now you have the same information as the doctor. That is actually the case in Denmark. So it's so important of improving and having a better democracy is also sharing data. So being co-writer on your own illness, you're also a stronger person. Then we have AI. It gives us a new dimension. And I fully agree that the healthcare systems, the healthcare sectors have to use AI. Also due to another non-democratic factor. It's the ChatGPT AI solutions which is taking the world with storm these days. If I had a slide, I will show you how ChatGPT has risen in traffic like this. In months, they go from 0 to 100 billion users, and then 2 months after, it's 1 billion users. It's so increasing. And actually, they are doing two things, which really is the reason why I'm saying I don't think that a web portal should be the cornerstone of a future digital front door in Denmark. Because one thing, they are pulling away traffic from public websites like ours, because people use ChatGPT. They ask questions about health in ChatGPT. Then ChatGPT services, AI, Google, and so on, use trustworthy sources like Sundhed as a source. We have had a research in Denmark by an external firm, and they showed that we are source number one. We are so trustworthy when people ask about sore throat or something like that. We are number one, and the biggest hospital is number 2 with 42%. We have 100%. So we are source number one, and they mentioned us as a source. But when you see the answer about sore throat as an example, you also see that we are source number one. But the answer is not what you can read in Sundhed. The answer is spliced together from different things around the world, from South China, from US, from Germany. So it's something else. So being a Danish expert, have been writing in the medical handbook, and we are mentioned as the source, and something else is standing there. Yeah. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating, and it's really a chance to democracy and evidence-based medicine. So what do we do? We can't beat the tech giants. Sundhed can't beat the tech giants and their traffic. But we have to do something like that. We have to work with digital assistants. We have to have our own closed AI-based answers, generative answers about health. So that's what we are doing now. We are pulling together the forces, also across sectors, because we also have web portals for citizens. We have web portals for business. So in Denmark, web portals are part of the national strategies, and all those web portals are going down in traffic. But now we are trying to put our forces together to make virtual assistants for the citizens, for all the industry and so on, to take up the really big challenge we have with AI these years.
Yeah, the development is definitely going in the direction of small specialized AI agents. We just need an operating system for that, as well, as Bart De Witte would say. Michael, you wanted to also comment something?
Yes, a comment on the AI discussion, and also Mark's picture in a way of putting regulation and innovation as opposites. And of course, many of us see it that way, but at the same time, I think it's in the eye of the beholder, and depends on whom you're talking to. Because when I discuss, for instance, GDPR and the challenges with it, with our legal experts in my agency, they look strangely at me. GDPR, it's facilitating exchange of health data, so what's the problem? So I think we see it in different ways, maybe. And it's the same with, actually we had a government assignment a couple of years ago to my agency, and I was leading that. And in one of the writings it said the government wanted us to look at the possibilities for establishing actually a regulatory sandbox for health data and maybe AI models, etc. And when I discussed this again with our legal experts, they say, no can do. It's not possible according to current Swedish legislation. That was a couple of years ago. I think that atmosphere has now changed. So now we're more proactive and also more positive in looking at assignments or challenges of that kind. And I think also, if we look at our data protection authority in Sweden, it also used to have a very laid-back position like this, just saying, no, you cannot do that, full stop. Now they have, according also to government assignments, they have a more friendly approach when it comes to these things, more as providing guidance, for instance, looking at the AI development, etc. So I think it's a good development, moving in the right direction, and being a pessimist maybe, or well-informed realist, I wanted just to end with that slightly positive example from Sweden. Thank you.
We touched upon different contexts outside of Europe, your realities. So if we just go back into what has already been done and what we know, Elina, FinData, which we mentioned earlier, is seen as this North Star for secondary use of data. Can you talk about what countries can expect in terms of challenges, or what were the challenges when you tried to set up FinData? It's 7 years old, so obviously now we see it as if you just decided and it was there and no problems incurred.
Thank you very much for the question. Indeed, it has not always been smooth sailing. So in the beginning in Finland, we also had some difficulties, and I think one of the key learnings is that even though you are trying to be prepared, there are always surprises, and maybe everything takes, well, not always, a little bit longer time, but really it can take longer time because you are doing it at the first time. So practice is the key. So I think we should also practice the EHDS and the cross-border use cases before the application starts. I think that is a key learning, because if we are trying to learn to figure it out when the application already starts, then it's already too late. And that is also what we encountered in Finland, because the expectations from the researchers were really high. So there were loads of applications when it was possible to send in the permit application. And of course, then you got a lot of waiting times, much more than we were prepared for. So I think that is also key learning, that to have resources and competent staff and really try to be prepared also for the unexpected. But of course, you are also doing and learning as you are doing it. So I think the new regulations and the new processes and the new systems, you also just learn by doing it. But I think, I know, Mark, you don't want to talk about the regulation, but I still have to mention it, because in Finland, when we had the National Act and it came into force, it sort of came behind the tree, so to say, because there was not a lot of stakeholder engagement before that. So it came as a surprise a bit. There was also some misunderstanding about the content, because legal text, it's not always so easy to interpret. How is that going to work in practice? So I think the first 2 years, it was also solving the misunderstandings. And now we are actually updating the national regulation, not only because of the EHDS, but because of the kind of misunderstandings and misinterpretations that many of the stakeholders had. So I think being very clear in terms of the legal basis and the responsibilities of the different actors, engaging the stakeholders early on. So that is a key learning that we have taken in Tehdas 2 joint action to truly engage with the stakeholders more early on in the process and not when everything is already decided. So I think that is one of the key learnings.
The timer is already warning us that we need to wrap up, but I'm sure that we could continue for another hour or so. So just to Silvia, we are happy to come back next year, and thank you everyone for listening to this panel. Will you just go on? Yeah. Okay.